In the pantheon of 1990s R&B, few songs achieved the iconic status of Return of the Mack. Its infectious beat, memorable hook, and the smooth, soulful voice of Mark Morrison created a cultural touchstone that continues to resonate decades later. Yet behind the platinum plaques and international acclaim lies a story far more complex than the triumphant comeback narrative suggested by Morrison's signature hit. Mark Morrison's journey through the music industry represents one of the most fascinating tales of meteoric success, devastating falls, and persistent attempts at redemption in modern R&B history. His story traverses continents, courtrooms, prison cells, and recording studios. A cautionary tale that simultaneously serves as a testament to the enduring power of musical talent in the face of self-sabotage. As we explore Morrison's tumultuous career, we'll examine how a young man from Leicester, England, rose to international stardom only to see his promising career repeatedly derailed by legal troubles, poor decisions, and the consequences of fame. We'll delve into the spiritual transformation that saw him convert to Islam, his battles with addiction and mental health challenges, and his unwavering belief in his own innocence amid mounting legal problems. This is the story of Mark Morrison.
And the winner is... Mark Morrison!
On Mark's behalf, I'd like to accept this award, and we're very, very, very pleased, and we thank Choice FM, Radio 1, Warners, God, and everybody else who supported us. Thank you very much. Good night.
The voice behind one of R&B's most enduring anthems, and a man whose personal demons threatened to silence that voice forever. It's a narrative about the price of fame, the complexity of redemption, and the resilience required to return again and again after falling from grace. Mark Morrison was born on May 3, 1972 in Hanover, Germany, to Barbadian parents, though he was raised primarily in Leicester, England. This multicultural upbringing would later influence his unique musical style, which blended American R&B sensibilities with British urban sounds and Caribbean influences. Growing up in the East Midlands of England during the 1980s, Morrison was exposed to a diverse musical landscape that included everything from American soul and hip-hop to British electronic music and reggae. Little is publicly documented about Morrison's earliest years, but like many artists, music provided both an escape and a means of self-expression during his formative period. The Leicester of Morrison's youth was experiencing significant demographic changes and social tensions, creating an environment where music served as both entertainment and cultural identity for many young people. Morrison's entry into the music industry wasn't immediate or straightforward. Before finding success, he reportedly worked various jobs and spent time developing his distinctive vocal style. Unlike many R&B stars who came through talent shows or were discovered young, Morrison's path to stardom came relatively later, adding to the hunger and determination evident in his breakthrough performances. In the early 1990s, Morrison began to make inroads into the music scene, initially releasing singles on small independent labels. His early work showed promise but gave little indication of the massive success that would follow. What set Morrison apart was his distinctive voice, a smooth, soulful instrument capable of conveying both vulnerability and swagger, and his natural charisma, which translated powerfully through both audio recordings and music videos. By 1995, Morrison had secured a record deal with WEA Records, later part of Warner Music Group, setting the stage for his breakthrough. His first major single, Crazy, released in 1995, reached the UK Top 20, suggesting that Morrison had the potential to make a significant impact. However, even at this early stage of his career, trouble was brewing. In 1995, he was involved in a nightclub altercation that resulted in him being convicted of causing grievous bodily harm. This early brush with the law would foreshadow the legal issues that would plague his career. Despite this setback, Morrison continued to build momentum. His follow-up singles, Let's Get Down and Crazy Remix, both charted in the UK, laying the groundwork for what would become his defining moment. The stage was set for Morrison to deliver something special, something that would transcend the typical lifespan of a pop single and become embedded in the cultural consciousness. What followed would change everything for both Morrison and the landscape of R&B music in the mid-1990s. In March 1996, Mark Morrison released Return of the Mack, a song that would forever define his career and secure his place in music history. The track's genesis came during a particularly challenging time for Morrison. He had recently been released from prison after serving a 3-month sentence related to an earlier conviction. This personal context gave the song's triumphant, comeback-themed lyrics an authenticity that resonated with listeners. Return of the Mack wasn't just a song, it was a statement.
And show you that I win.
Over a sample from Tom Tom Club's Genius of Love, the same sample that powered Mariah Carey's Fantasy, Morrison crafted a narrative of resilience and return after betrayal. The production, handled by Phil Chill, struck a perfect balance between contemporary R&B smoothness and hip-hop edge, creating a sound that worked equally well on radio stations, in clubs, and on personal stereos across the globe. The song's impact was immediate and massive. In the United Kingdom, Return of the Mack shot to number 1 on the UK singles chart, unseating the Spice Girls and remaining in the top 10 for an impressive 10 weeks. The success wasn't limited to Morrison's home country. The single peaked at number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the United States, held from the top spot only by the notorious B.I.G.'s Hypnotize. Globally, the track achieved top 10 status in numerous countries, including Germany, Australia, and France. The numbers tell an impressive story. Return of the Mack sold over 2 million copies worldwide and achieved platinum certification in multiple territories. The accompanying music video, featuring Morrison in signature sunglasses and leather outfits against urban backdrops, became a staple on MTV and other music video channels, further cementing his image as a confident, stylish R&B star with crossover appeal. The phenomenal success of the single propelled Morrison's debut album, also titled Return of the Mack, to similar heights. Released in 1996, the album reached number 4 on the UK Albums Chart and number 36 on the US Billboard 200. It spawned additional hit singles including Crazy, Horny, and Moan and Groan, establishing Morrison as more than a one-hit wonder and suggesting a promising career trajectory. Music critics praised Morrison's smooth vocal delivery and the album's production, which skillfully blended American R&B influences with distinctly British sensibilities. In many ways, Morrison helped bridge the gap between US and UK urban music scenes, paving the way for future British R&B and soul artists to find international success. The cultural impact of Return of the Mack extended beyond chart positions and sales figures. This song became an anthem of resilience and comeback, a theme that would take on additional poignancy as Morrison's own career experienced dramatic ups and downs. Its hook, Return of the Mack once again, entered the lexicon as shorthand for any kind of triumphant return after adversity. At this career peak, Morrison seemed poised to build on his breakthrough and establish himself as a long-term force in global R&B. He had the voice, the look, the charisma, and now the commercial track record to suggest a bright future. Industry awards and recognition followed, including a Brit Award nomination for Best British Male Solo Artist in 1997. However, even as Morrison enjoyed this unprecedented success, the shadows of his past and the temptations of his newfound fame were beginning to create complications that would threaten everything he had achieved. As Mark Morrison's star ascended in the music world, his personal life began to spiral into a series of legal entanglements that would ultimately derail his promising career. The juxtaposition between his professional success and personal troubles created a stark narrative that fascinated the public and frustrated music industry executives who saw immense potential in the charismatic singer. In 1997, just as Return of the Mack was cementing its place in pop culture history, Morrison faced one of his most serious legal challenges. He was convicted of attempting to bring a firearm aboard an airliner, a serious offense that resulted in a 3-month jail sentence. This conviction came at a particularly unfortunate time, as Morrison was scheduled to promote his music in the United States, where Return of the Mack was climbing the charts. The timing couldn't have been worse, as music industry veteran and commentator Alan Edwards noted in a BBC documentary. The American market is crucial for any artist looking to establish global staying power. Morrison had the perfect opportunity to capitalize on his hit, but his legal issues effectively closed that window of opportunity. Unable to enter the U.S. for promotional appearances on shows like The Tonight Show and Saturday Night Live, Morrison watched from a jail cell as his career momentum stalled. Upon his release, Morrison attempted to regain his footing in the industry, but 1998 brought an even more troubling series of incidents and arrests. In March of that year, he was arrested for carrying an offensive weapon. While this charge might have been manageable on its own, what followed created a perfect storm of legal troubles that would define public perception of Morrison for years to come. The most notorious incident occurred when Morrison was sentenced to community service following his involvement in a bar fight that had resulted in a fatality. Rather than fulfill this obligation himself, Morrison made the fateful decision to hire a lookalike to perform his community service in his place. This deception was eventually discovered, resulting in a 1-year prison sentence for perverting the course of justice, a charge that carried not just legal consequences, but significant damage to his reputation. The community service scandal became a defining moment in Morrison's public narrative. It suggested not just poor judgment, but a certain arrogance and disconnection from reality that alienated many fans and industry supporters. As music journalist Charles Waring wrote at the time, "The music industry can be forgiving of many transgressions, but Morrison's actions suggested a fundamental lack of respect for the legal system and for the second chances he had already been given." Morrison's legal troubles continued into the new millennium. In 2002, he was arrested on suspicion of kidnapping and car theft, though he was eventually released without charge. In 2004, another arrest followed a nightclub altercation. Each incident further complicated his already troubled relationship with the law and added to the growing perception that Morrison was unable or unwilling to stay out of trouble. The cumulative effect of these legal issues was devastating to Morrison's career trajectory. Record labels became hesitant to invest in an artist who might be unavailable for promotion or performance due to incarceration. Radio stations were less eager to play new music from an artist increasingly known more for his criminal record than his musical output. Perhaps most significantly, Morrison's legal problems prevented him from touring in the United States, effectively cutting him off from the world's largest music market at a time when his presence there could have solidified his international standing. Throughout this period, Morrison maintained that he was often targeted unfairly by law enforcement, and that his fame made him a convenient scapegoat. In several interviews, he suggested that racial profiling played a role in his frequent encounters with police. While these claims are difficult to verify independently, they reflect the complex intersection of race, fame, and justice system interactions that has affected many artists of color. The irony of Morrison's situation was not lost on cultural commentators. The man who had scored a massive hit with a song about returning triumphantly after setbacks found himself repeatedly trying to engineer comebacks after self-inflicted career wounds. The question increasingly became whether the talent and charisma that had propelled Return of the Mack to global success could overcome the serious obstacles Morrison had placed in his own path. Amidst the turmoil of legal battles and career setbacks, Mark Morrison underwent a profound personal transformation that would significantly impact his worldview and artistic direction. In 1998, during one of the most challenging periods of his life, Morrison converted to Islam, a decision that surprised many fans and industry observers but represented a sincere search for meaning and structure during chaotic times. Morrison's conversion wasn't merely a casual change of religious affiliation. He embraced his new faith with conviction, even attempting to legally change his name to Abdul Rahman. This spiritual awakening came at a critical juncture, as he faced mounting legal troubles and the potential unraveling of his music career. In rare interviews about his conversion, Morrison described finding in Islam a sense of peace and purpose that had eluded him amid the whirlwind of fame. When everything around you is spinning out of control, you search for something solid to hold on to, he told a British music magazine in 1999. I found that in my faith. It gave me perspective when I needed it most. The timing of Morrison's conversion is particularly noteworthy, coming as it did during a period when he was facing serious legal consequences for his actions. Some skeptics suggested that his embrace of Islam might have been a calculated move to present a reformed image to the courts or the public. However, those closer to Morrison insisted that his spiritual journey was genuine and deeply felt. Morrison's faith influenced his approach to music as well. Following his conversion, his lyrics began to reflect more introspection and spiritual themes, though he never fully transitioned to making explicitly religious music. Instead, his post-conversion work often explored themes of redemption, forgiveness, and personal accountability, concepts central to his religious understanding but accessible to listeners of all backgrounds. The practical aspects of Morrison's faith also created new challenges for an artist in the R&B world. Adherence to Islamic principles meant navigating an industry often centered around alcohol, nightlife, and sexualized content, elements that had featured prominently in R&B marketing and performance at the time. Morrison had to find his own path through these contradictions, sometimes successfully and sometimes not. His conversion also affected his public image in complex ways. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, Muslims in Western countries often faced increased scrutiny and stereotyping, particularly after the September 11th attacks. As a high-profile convert, Morrison occasionally found himself navigating these societal tensions while trying to rebuild his music career. Despite these challenges, Morrison's faith provided him with a framework for understanding his own mistakes and a pathway toward redemption. In several interviews during this period, he spoke about how Islamic teachings on forgiveness and second chances resonated with his own circumstances and aspirations. The spiritual dimension of Morrison's journey adds important context to his attempts at career resurrection in the years that followed his legal troubles. His faith became not just a personal anchor, but a lens through which he interpreted his past success, his falls from grace, and his hopes for future redemption, both personal and professional. As music journalist Marcus Scott noted in a 2005 profile, Morrison's conversion represents one of the more genuine aspects of his complicated public persona. Whatever one thinks of his legal troubles or career choices, his spiritual journey appears to be a sincere attempt to find meaning beyond the fleeting validation of fame. This spiritual awakening would later inform Morrison's 2006 album, Innocent Man, which dealt explicitly with themes of wrongful accusation, redemption, and the search for justice, both divine and earthly. The album's title and content reflected Morrison's persistent claims of innocence regarding various charges against him, now framed within a spiritual context of ultimate accountability to a higher power. By the mid-2000s, Mark Morrison had become as well known for his legal troubles as for his music. His once promising career had stalled, with Return of the Mack increasingly looking like a brilliant but isolated moment of success rather than the beginning of a sustained career. Yet Morrison's resilience, the very quality celebrated in his signature hit, would drive multiple attempts to reclaim his position in the music industry. The most significant of these comeback efforts centered around his 2006 album, aptly titled Innocent Man. The album's title reflected Morrison's persistent claims of being unfairly targeted by law enforcement and the media, while also nodding to his spiritual journey and search for redemption. Released on his own label, Mack Life Records, after deals with major labels had become complicated by his legal history. Innocent Man represented Morrison's artistic declaration of independence and personal statement of purpose. Musically, Innocent Man showcased a more mature Morrison with production that balanced contemporary R&B sounds with nods to the classic style that had made Return of the Mack so successful. Collaborations with artists like DMX and Elephant Man demonstrated Morrison's continued relevance and connections within the industry, despite his years of career interruptions. The album's lead single, Dance For Me, achieved modest success in the UK, reaching number 24 on the charts, respectable, though nowhere near the heights of his earlier hits. Critics generally received the album positively, with many noting that Morrison's voice remained as compelling as ever, even if the commercial landscape had shifted significantly during his absence from the spotlight. In interviews promoting Innocent Man, Morrison spoke candidly about his struggles and his determination to rebuild his career. "I've made mistakes, no question," he told The Guardian in 2006. "But I've paid for them many times over. The music industry and the justice system both love a comeback story until they actually have to give someone that second chance." The album's title track directly addressed Morrison's feelings about his legal troubles and public perception. "They tried to break me down, but I'm still standing my truth against their lies. I'm still standing, label me a criminal. But in my heart, I'm still an innocent man." Despite the personal significance of Innocent Man and its artistic merits, the album failed to fully reignite Morrison's career. The music industry had changed dramatically since his late 90s heyday. Physical album sales were declining, digital distribution was transforming consumption patterns, and new styles of R&B were emerging. Additionally, Morrison's inability to tour in the United States due to his criminal record continued to limit his commercial potential in a crucial market. Following Innocent Man, Morrison continued to release music periodically, including singles like Innocent Man, Misunderstood, featuring Trey Tha Truth and Snoop Dogg in 2009, and I Am What I Am in 2013. Each release was framed as yet another comeback, another return of the Mack, but mainstream success remained elusive. In 2012, Morrison announced plans for a new album titled I Am What I Am, though its release was repeatedly delayed. He established a new record label and production company, Mack Life Records, in an attempt to take greater control of his career and artistic output. This entrepreneurial approach reflected both Morrison's determination to remain in the music industry and the reality that major labels had become hesitant to invest significantly in his projects. Throughout these years, Morrison maintained a complicated relationship with his signature hit. On one hand, Return of the Mack ensured continued royalties and performance opportunities. On the other, it created a standard against which all his subsequent work was measured, often unfavorably. As music journalist Craig Jenkins noted in a 2015 retrospective, Morrison faces the classic one-hit wonders dilemma, blessed with a song so perfectly executed and culturally significant that it both makes and breaks his career. Perhaps the most poignant aspect of Morrison's comeback attempts was the way they mirrored the narrative of resilience in Return of the Mack itself. The song that made him famous told a story of triumphant return after betrayal and setback, a story that Morrison himself was now living repeatedly with varying degrees of success. Despite the commercial challenges, Morrison's persistence demonstrated a genuine artist's commitment to his craft. Even when the spotlight dimmed, he continued to create music, refine his sound, and seek connections with audiences. This determination, regardless of commercial outcomes, revealed a depth of character that transcended the simplistic, troubled star narrative that often defined media coverage of his career. Behind the headlines about legal troubles and career setbacks, Mark Morrison was fighting more private battles that significantly impacted both his personal well-being and professional trajectory. Throughout his career, Morrison struggled with addiction issues and mental health challenges that were often overshadowed by his more public legal problems, but were inextricably linked to his tumultuous journey. While Morrison has rarely spoken explicitly about the nature and extent of his substance abuse issues, industry insiders and those close to the singer have confirmed that drugs and alcohol played a destructive role during key periods of his career. The sudden acquisition of fame and wealth following the success of Return of the Mack created an environment where these substances were readily available, and the pressure to maintain his success likely contributed to their appeal. Music producer Devin Jackson, who worked with Morrison in the late 1990s, later recalled, "Success at that level, that quickly, is disorienting for anyone. Add in the substances that are always around in the industry, and you've got a recipe for trouble." Mark was trying to navigate fame while battling demons that most people couldn't see behind the sunglasses and the attitude. The relationship between Morrison's addiction issues and his legal troubles appears to be cyclical. Substance abuse may have contributed to poor decision-making that led to arrests, while the stress of legal problems likely exacerbated his dependency issues. This destructive cycle is unfortunately common among artists who achieve rapid success without adequate support systems in place. Mental health challenges also played a significant role in Morrison's story, though these were even less publicly discussed than his substance issues. In rare, unguarded moments during interviews, Morrison has alluded to periods of depression, particularly during his incarcerations and when his career momentum stalled. The psychological impact of going from global star to tabloid cautionary tale in a matter of years would be substantial for anyone. In a 2010 interview with a British music magazine, Morrison offered a glimpse into his mental state during the darkest periods. "There were times I didn't want to get out of bed, didn't want to face the world. Everyone had an opinion about me, about my mistakes, but nobody really knew what I was going through inside. Fame shows you who your real friends are, and sometimes that's a very small number." The stigma surrounding mental health issues, particularly in the 1990s and early 2000s, likely contributed to Morrison's reluctance to speak openly about these struggles. Additionally, within both the music industry and many cultural communities, there has historically been resistance to acknowledging psychological challenges, often dismissing them as weakness rather than recognizing them as health issues requiring proper treatment. Morrison's conversion to Islam, discussed in the previous section, can also be viewed partially through the lens of his search for mental and spiritual stability during tumultuous times. The structure, community, and moral framework provided by his faith appears to have offered some sanctuary from his internal struggles, though clearly not a complete solution to his complex issues. By the mid-2000s, there were signs that Morrison was taking steps to address these personal challenges. The more mature perspective evident in his Innocent Man album suggested someone coming to terms with his past and seeking healthier ways forward. Several music industry sources reported that Morrison had sought treatment for his substance issues, though the private nature of such treatment means details remain appropriately confidential. Mental health expert Dr. Claudia Marshall, who has studied the psychological impact of fame on musicians, notes, "The narrative of rise, fall, and redemption that we love in our celebrity stories often overlooks the genuine psychological trauma involved in these transitions. For someone like Morrison, maintaining mental health while experiencing extreme career volatility would be extraordinarily challenging. The impact of these personal struggles on Morrison's music is evident in the evolution of his lyrical themes. While Return of the Mack channeled bravado and resilience in the face of betrayal, his later work often explored deeper themes of internal conflict, the search for peace, and the complexity of redemption.
What I can do, and if you still don't believe.
Songs like Best Friend and Innocent Man reveal an artist grappling with his own contradictions and seeking authentic self-expression beyond the confident persona that initially made him famous. In recent years, Morrison has become somewhat more open about these aspects of his journey, perhaps reflecting both personal growth and the broader societal shift toward destigmatizing mental health and addiction issues. This openness, while still measured, has added important context to understanding the full scope of his career challenges and the genuine struggles behind the tabloid headlines. Despite the many challenges and setbacks that have defined Mark Morrison's career, the cultural impact of Return of the Mack has transcended its creator's personal troubles to become one of the most enduring R&B anthems of the 1990s. The song's remarkable resilience in popular culture speaks to its perfect execution and universal emotional appeal, continuing to find new audiences decades after its initial release. Return of the Mack has achieved that rare status of timelessness that eludes even many number one hits. Its signature hook and infectious production have made it a staple at parties, sporting events, and clubs well into the 21st century. The song's opening notes alone are instantly recognizable to multiple generations of music fans, triggering an almost Pavlovian response on dance floors worldwide. The track's sampling by contemporary artists has introduced Morrison's signature sound to new audiences. Notable examples include G-Eazy and BB Rexha's Me, Myself, and I, which interpolated elements of Return of the Mack. And Nevada's 2016 dance, Hit the Mack, featuring Mark Morrison himself alongside Fetty Wap. Post Malone, one of the biggest stars of the streaming era, has cited Morrison as an influence and performed Return of the Mack in his live shows, introducing the song to a generation of fans who weren't even born when it was first released. Music critic Andrew Unterberger captured the song's enduring appeal. Some hits are of their moment, and some transcend it completely. Return of the Mack somehow manages to be both quintessentially 90s in its production and attitude, yet somehow completely at home in any era. It's a testament to how perfectly Morrison and his producers captured lightning in a bottle. The song's thematic content, triumphantly returning after betrayal and setback, has given it particular resonance in sports contexts. Return of the Mack has become a standard celebratory anthem at stadiums and arenas, played when star players return from injury or when teams make comebacks. This usage has further cemented the song in popular culture beyond music circles. In the streaming era, the numbers tell a compelling story about the song's lasting impact. On platforms like Spotify, Return of the Mack continues to accumulate millions of streams annually, far outpacing most contemporary releases from the same period. The song has been featured in numerous films and television shows, from The 40-Year-Old Virgin to Brooklyn Nine-Nine, further extending its cultural footprint. Beyond the specific success of Return of the Mack, Morrison's broader musical legacy is more complex. His work helped establish a bridge between American R&B and British urban music, paving the way for the UK artists who would later find success in similar territory. Artists like Craig David, who emerged in the early 2000s with a blend of R&B, garage, and pop, owe a debt to Morrison's earlier crossover success. Morrison's fashion sense and visual presentation also left an imprint on R&B aesthetics. His signature look, featuring leather outfits, distinctive sunglasses, and confident swagger, created a template that influenced how male R&B artists presented themselves visually.
Yes, I tried. Yes, I tried. Your love for me.
The sleek, high production value music videos for his singles established a standard for visual sophistication in British urban music.
Yes, I cried. Yes, I cried.
Perhaps most poignantly, Morrison's career trajectory itself has become a cautionary tale within the music industry about the pitfalls of sudden fame and the importance of support systems for young artists. Industry veteran and talent manager Sharon Osbourne reflected in a 2018 documentary, "Mark's story is one that everyone in this business should study. Incredible talent, massive success, and then a series of self-destructive decisions that derailed everything. The music industry is better at supporting artists through these challenges now, and Mark's experience is part of why." For Morrison himself, the legacy of Return of the Mack presents a complex emotional reality. The song that made him a star continues to define him in the public imagination, even as he has worked to evolve as an artist and person. In recent interviews, Morrison has expressed both pride in the song's lasting impact and frustration at being primarily defined by work he created in his early 20s. "That song gave me everything and took everything away at the same time," Morrison told a music journalist in 2019. "I'm grateful for what it's done for me, but I'm more than just that one song. Every artist wants to grow, to evolve. I've made a lot of music since then that I'm proud of, but people always want to talk about Return of the Mack." Despite these complexities, the enduring popularity of Return of the Mack ensures that Morrison's place in music history is secure. Few artists achieve the creation of even one song with such lasting cultural impact, and the track's continued relevance speaks to the genuine musical talent that Morrison possessed, regardless of the personal troubles that complicated his career. After years of legal troubles, career setbacks, and personal struggles, Mark Morrison's story in recent years has evolved into one of gradual redemption and renewed purpose. While he may never recapture the commercial heights of his Return of the Mack era, Morrison has found new ways to channel his experiences and talents into meaningful projects, both within and beyond the music industry. In the 2010s, Morrison began to establish a more stable presence in the music world, releasing singles periodically and performing at select venues and festivals. His 2013 single, "I Am What I Am," reflected a more mature artist making peace with his complicated past while asserting his continued relevance. Though these releases didn't achieve major chart success, they demonstrated Morrison's commitment to continuing his musical journey on his own terms. Perhaps most significantly, Morrison has increasingly focused on mentorship and community work, particularly in his hometown of Leicester, England. In 2012, he established the Mack Life Foundation, an organization aimed at providing opportunities for young people from disadvantaged backgrounds to pursue careers in music and avoid the pitfalls that complicated his own journey. "I've made every mistake you can make in this business," Morrison explained at the foundation's launch event. "If I can help even one young person avoid those same traps, then all my struggles will have been worth something beyond just my own lessons learned." The foundation has worked with local schools and community centers to provide recording equipment, music education, and mentorship programs. Morrison has been hands-on with these initiatives, regularly meeting with young musicians and sharing both technical knowledge and hard-earned wisdom about navigating the music industry. In 2018, Morrison opened Mack Life Studios in Leicester, a professional recording facility that serves both as a commercial venture and as a resource for his community work. The studio has hosted recording sessions for established artists while also providing subsidized time for promising local talents who might otherwise lack access to professional recording environments. Morrison's personal life has also stabilized in recent years. While he maintains a degree of privacy about his family life, he has mentioned in interviews that becoming a father has given him new perspective and motivation. Having children changes everything, he told a British newspaper in 2017. Suddenly, it's not just about you anymore. You want to build something positive that will outlast you, something your kids can be proud of. His relationship with his Islamic faith continues to provide spiritual grounding, though Morrison now discusses his beliefs with more nuance and less of the zealous convert energy that characterized his earlier statements. "My faith is personal now," he explained in a 2019 podcast interview. "It's between me and God. I don't feel the need to prove my devotion to anyone else." Musically, Morrison has embraced his legacy while continuing to create new work. Rather than distance himself from Return of the Mack, he has come to appreciate the song's enduring popularity and the doors it continues to open. His collaborations with younger artists like Nevada and Fetty Wap on the Mack in 2016 demonstrated his willingness to revisit his signature sound while updating it for contemporary audiences. In 2020, amid the global pandemic, Morrison announced plans for what he described as his final album, tentatively titled Legacy. While the project has yet to materialize in full, Morrison has released singles including Confusion, featuring Robbie Craig, and has promised that the album will serve as both a capstone to his musical career and a platform for showcasing new talents he's discovered through his foundation work. Morrison's legal troubles appear to be largely behind him, with no significant incidents reported in recent years. He has regained the ability to travel to the United States, allowing him to perform for American audiences who know him primarily through Return of the Mack and its enduring presence in popular culture. Critics and music industry observers have noted a marked change in Morrison's public persona. The defensive, sometimes combative attitude that characterized many of his interviews during his legal troubles has given way to a more reflective, measured approach. Morrison now speaks with the perspective of someone who has processed his experiences and extracted meaningful lessons from them. "I was angry for a long time," he acknowledged in a 2021 interview with a music website. "Angry at the system, angry at the industry, angry at myself. That anger didn't serve me well. I've learned that you can acknowledge injustice without letting it consume you. You can learn from mistakes without being defined by them forever." Mark Morrison's journey through the music industry represents one of the most compelling narratives of triumph, tragedy, and resilience in modern R&B history. From the dizzying heights of global success with Return of the Mack to the depths of incarceration and career stagnation, and finally to a measured redemption through mentorship and community work, Morrison's story transcends the typical rise and fall celebrity arc. What makes Morrison's story particularly poignant is the prophetic nature of his signature hit. Return of the Mack wasn't just a song about comeback and resilience, it became the recurring theme of Morrison's life and career. Time and again, he has faced setbacks, some self-inflicted and others the result of systemic challenges, only to find ways to return and reinvent himself. The chorus that made him famous, Return of the Mack once again, reads almost like a personal mantra that has guided him through his darkest moments. The enduring popularity of Return of the Mack ensures that Morrison's musical legacy is secure, regardless of the commercial performance of his later work. Few songs from the mid-1990s have demonstrated such remarkable staying power, continuing to find new audiences and contexts decades after their release. The track's perfect blend of confidence and vulnerability, coupled with its irresistible production, created something that transcends its era to become truly timeless. Beyond the music itself, Morrison's story offers valuable lessons about fame, redemption, and personal growth. His early career demonstrates how quickly success can spiral into trouble when young artists lack proper support systems and make poor decisions amid the pressures of sudden fame. His legal troubles highlight the complex intersection of celebrity, race, and justice system interactions that continues to affect many artists, particularly those of color. Most importantly, Morrison's later evolution shows that redemption is possible, even after repeated setbacks and public failures. His focus on mentorship and community work represents a meaningful way to transform personal struggles into positive impact for others. By sharing both his talents and his hard-earned wisdom with young musicians, Morrison has found purpose beyond the pursuit of hits and commercial validation. Music journalist Marcus Scott perhaps put it best in a 2022 retrospective. Mark Morrison could have been just another cautionary tale, another whatever happened to Wikipedia entry. Instead, he's become something more interesting, an artist who has processed his complicated journey and found ways to make it matter beyond himself. The Mack has returned not just to the spotlight, but to something more meaningful, purpose. As Morrison himself approaches his 6th decade, his relationship with his past appears more balanced than ever before. He neither runs from the mistakes and struggles that complicated his career, nor allows them to define him completely. Instead, he has integrated these experiences into a more complete understanding of himself as both an artist and a person. Life isn't a straight line up or down, Morrison reflected in a recent interview. It's a journey with peaks and valleys. I've seen both. What matters is what you learn along the way and what you do with those lessons. Return of the Mack was about coming back stronger after being knocked down. I've lived that song in ways I never could have imagined when I recorded it. In the final analysis, perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Mark Morrison's story is that it continues to evolve. The young man who captured lightning in a bottle with one of R&B's most enduring anthems has grown into a mentor, entrepreneur, and advocate who uses his experiences, both positive and negative, to create opportunities for the next generation. That evolution represents the most meaningful return of the Mack of all. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more juicy updates on your favorite celebs. See you next time.